My name is Yuridia Lopez, but you guys can all just call me Yuri. And today I will be presenting to you my cultural artifact, which I do hope you guys will be able to identify with by the end of this. Alright, so just think about this really quickly for me. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you look at this picture? Just Alright, well, I'm really sure that the first thing that comes to you guys' mind when you look at it is very different from the first thing that comes to my mind. You see, the first thing that I thought about when I looked at this picture was cultural diversity. Now, why that is the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at this picture is because, why is it? Yeah, we'll be getting into that right now, actually. You guys will be able to understand why that is the first thing that came into my mind when I'm done with my speech, hopefully. So, actually, that was my cultural object, my cultural artifact. More specifically, he was my cultural artifact, and he happens to be Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is a Mesoamerican god, also known as the Great Feathered Serpent. He's sort of, I guess, the Zeus to Aztec mythology. Now, why I picked Quetzalcoatl to be my cultural artifact is because I believe him to represent cultural diversity, or at least the mixing of cultures. And I am a product of that. You see, my grandparents from my father's side are both Mexican, and that is a mixed culture in itself. And my grandparents from my mother's side consist of a French woman and a Native American Yaqui shaman. So, hopefully what I will be trying to get across to you by the end of my short speech is the fact that Quetzalcoatl represents the mixing of cultures or cultural diversity, not only in my background, but in all of your backgrounds as well. And that is because if you were to take your specific culture, or the culture that you identify with the most, and go back far enough into its history, you will realize that it has not always been that one culture you know today, but it is in fact made up of bits and pieces that it's picked up throughout history from other cultures around the world that actually may or may not still exist today. And to get into why he represents that mixing of cultures, we have to go a little bit into his history. Now, like I had mentioned already before, Quetzalcoatl is a Mesoamerican god. And the Aztecs believed that this god would come to them in his human form and bring a whole new era to the world. And his human form was described as being a white man riding a beast that they had never seen before. So when Hernán Cortés came from Spain to Mesoamerica, the Aztecs believed that he was their god Quetzalcoatl because he was a white man and they had never seen a white man before. Actually, most of them believed white men didn't exist. And he was riding a horse, and that was a creature they had never seen before either. And so that, because he was described in that way, Hernán Cortés was able to come in and take over like he did. But if Quetzalcoatl had been described differently by the priests, then Hernán Cortés wouldn't have been able to do what he did. But it was just that specific fact that Quetzalcoatl just happened to be described in that specific way, the only reason that Hernán Cortés was able to come and do everything he did. So Quetzalcoatl was essentially a catalyst that sort of paved the smooth way towards the first great mixing of cultures in that part of the world. Now, that is why he represents, or I believe that he represents, that mixing of cultures. And that is something that not only happened, that one time, but this is just an example of something that's been going on over and over and over, all around the world since the beginning of time. And it is something that still happens today, a lot less frequently and maybe a little less violent, but it still happens. Cultures overlapping with other cultures. And that is why I believe Quetzalcoatl represents cultural diversity, and not only back then, but he represents it still today. You could even say he represents this classroom right now, and all of us in it, because of the cultural diversity in it. Now, I identify with this culture of diversity because I am a product of this culture of diversity, like I said, my background, and that has greatly shaped the person that I am today. And not only am I a product of it, but I've lived my life surrounded by people who are also a product of it. So all in all, Quetzalcoatl represents just the simple fact that each and every one of us is essentially a melting pot with ingredients old and new from all over the world. And I believe that Quetzalcoatl and the diversity of cultures is relevant not only to me, but to all of you because of what he represented back then and what he represents today. And who knows, maybe one day with the rapid globalization of the world, there will come a time when everybody lives under this just giant culture all together. So, yes. Thank you.